barely breathe. It's like taking off a bra.
All right. What is that like? I've never taken a bra.
Yeah, I don't know
like,
what.
Literally, as a gay man, I've never taken a bra.
I don't know what I would compare it to for y'all. Maybe like sweaty underwear. I don't. Yeah. Like something freeing. Like you're just free.
Just let the girls out.
Yeah, just let out.
I was surprised during training how much the word titties came up.
All right.
Like show ass and shake titties was just like a.
It's a thing. Like it's like a feeling on the bike.
And I've never had, but I got it when he said it.
I think you got it very well,
like, oh, throw ass and shake titties.
You're like, I can do that.
I can do
when
this.
we were at the freaking, there was a part of training where we had to like learn to dance, and G flipped on his head and was twerking on a headstand. Literally, not even a handstand, a headstand. It was
yoga,
pretty dope.
Granola. I'm like ghetto granola.
I love that. You're a sensitive thug.
But I appreciate you coming through to my new vlog podcast. Negro sitting on the couch situation. I don't know, like, because everyone's like, oh, what is it, G? And people are like, people are very like, is it a YouTube inspiration?
There's black folks talking on the couch.
It's just Negroes on the couch.
I like that.
I'm trying not to use the N word.
That's how I use my Instagram, basically. Like me just sitting on the couch talking about things, slapping children and stuff. Yeah.
But I guess the premise of everything is just like, we walk around with this mask on, right? Literally a mask on. Yeah. And then even before that, it really got me to thinking like, what mask do we walk around with all the time? And like, I thought of you when I was thinking about this because like, I think about one, you have a opinion on everything.
I do. It's a Gemini thing. I really feel very strongly about so many everything I have an opinion on. Tell me, I like this vase. It's beautiful. Like I like it. It looks really.
It's not much you be like, I don't want to know. No, you're like, no, I like it or I don't like it. It's
absolutely.
Good or not. So but I just want to talk about that, and I think the major concept is I have these cool conversations with everyone, especially you. We've had so many deep, good conversations. We'll probably get to that later, where I feel like we connected when the
first conversation we ever had.
I was like, Sasha, you're fake.
Yeah, I
don't even know her.
He didn't even know me. He told me like, you come off as fake.
A few days in. And I was like, do you really want my opinion? You were like, what?
I said yes.
You know, if anybody asks you that, you gotta say like,
you can't say no when somebody's like, do you want me to tell you about yourself? Who's gonna be like, no thanks.
And it was in DMs too, so it definitely was like another level of like misunderstanding on it.
And then exactly. That's why I was like, you should call me and share and explain this because it's not gonna come off right.
I was just like you fake and close.
Nobody has ever told me that before in my entire life. No one's ever been like, Sasha, you're fake. At least not to my face. You know, somebody felt that way behind my back. That's cool, whatever. But you're the only one who's ever said that to my face. And I was like, I need for him to explain what he means by
3 minutes, was like, bring. Yeah. She was like, what? Which I love, because a lot of people would have been like,
Yeah, a lot of people would have been like, F you, blocked, canceled, delete, whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I want to hear about it.
But I think where that came from, this kind of like concept with this is just like, I can like feel when people are like authentic, and I can feel when like people are authentic in some spaces and not in others. And I think not only does this apply to everyone, but if you're a person of color, if you're a woman, you come from an immigrant family, you know, you work in all these dynamic spaces. You work in a black woman in fitness, which is a whole nother spectrum of stuff. Yep. In your day job, you do coaching. So it's like all these things that like, I feel like we come into the world as a baby and it's just like, oh, like whatever I am is great. And then somewhere between like infancy to, I don't know how early it starts.
8 years old for girls.
Really?
8 years old, that is the highest point that girls reach their self-confidence. And after that, it's all downhill from there.
Damn.
Because of all, 8 years old. So I always say when I think about—
Welcome to inspirational, uplifting show for the family. Every girl out there, you got till 8.
So 8 years old.
Over.
And you're at 8. You haven't even self-actualized at that point before your confidence is already going down. It's crazy. And it's like the societal standards and norms we put on girls, especially black girls, especially black women, like it's crazy.
Well, I see it so much because I've also trained a lot of instructors. I've trained a lot of black women instructors, or at least that influence, even ones I didn't train that like I work with. And most of the training, at least at Sweat and then other times when I'm inspiring or mentoring, is really just scraping away things.
All
really
those masks.
Mask. I was training instructors last night, and I was talking to one of my instructors, and I was like, the world needs you to show up big for your why.
Yeah.
And right now, you're not showing up as big and as confident as the world needs you and as what we need you. I was like, could you go and like teach this class like this? Sure.
Yeah.
But you're at, like, particularly she was asking and not telling.
Yeah.
Which is, you know better than me, but like.
Right, but that's how, as women, we're socialized to kind of make ourselves soft, not be like too demanding, to ask. Like even the language we as women use sometimes, it's very qualifying, like justifying language. Like a lot of women, when we write emails or when we like communicate with people, it's please, just, can you, I feel. And I have to like be really mindful to take that kind of language out of my vocabulary when I write things and when I communicate with people.
So it's a conscious effort for you.
It's a conscious effort every single day. I'm just like so mindful.
Probably like mind blowing for a lot of people who are gonna be watching this and be like, oh,
Yeah.
you consciously, you're tiptoeing through life.
Yeah.
And when you tiptoe through life, you're not able to show up fully or even do what you're supposed to do at the level it's supposed to be done because you tiptoe.
Exactly, and like you're just trying to like it's so funny when you like message me and you're like, okay, we're gonna kind of talk about this because I really thought about it and I don't want to like jump the gun, but I'm like, really, I spent a lot of time before this pandemic like tiptoeing, and then like something finally in me clicked and I was like, I'm gonna be like Monica now. I'm gonna be like fucking kicking down doors and slapping hoes and just like being here and present, because I'm like, y'all are like, I'm just gonna fully officially show up as myself and not have to worry about like qualifying my existing verse or trying to explain myself, you know, like I like made a conscious effort to like that kind of switch.
And that's so hard.
Yeah.
So hard. And I think the tough thing about that is giving yourself grace to relearn these things.
Oh, absolutely.
Because especially like in life, you will hear a podcast or we'll be in a training or a situation and you're like, from now on, I'm gonna be authentic. And it don't work. It's like you've been 30 years now.
Right, or people tell you where they, you know, how they are now, but they don't tell you about like the steps that they took to get there. We like to present, and this is just very much the society that we live in. People like to present the final product, but we don't talk about all of the things that went into getting us from point A to point Z. We like to talk about where we started and how we ended up at point Z, but we don't talk about the messy B and the defeating D and like the tragic J. Like we don't talk about those things, and there's so much value in that, because like I don't think it's helpful personally to hear about how someone ended up where they are. For me, it's so helpful for me to hear about your trials and the tribulations and the ups and the downs and how you got out of those like, you know, downs.
Or even, and I'm trying to be better about this, is
Girl, I'm like all aggressive with the table.
talking about the mess when you're in the mess.
Yes.
That's the real scary stuff, right? Because people have a perception of you and it's like, you're like, oh, can I present? Like how authentic? I feel like, I think of like authenticity almost like intervals, right? It's like, you say you want it, but do you really want? Because you know, a lot of places like, Sasha, we really want you to be all of you. But when you come all of you, they're like, oh, not all that.
Thank you, exactly. And that's an environment that I was working in during the pandemic, like before everything happened. And I finally, like when I was like, I'm gonna show up as authentically me, and it was a problem. I was like, okay, you know what? We don't need to be here right now because you're saying you want me and you want the part of me that makes you money and makes you look good, but you don't want the part of me that demands or asks for you to pay us for our time to show up for training. People want you to show up for training for free. P.S. Make sure you get paid. But people like want you to show up and do and give of your energy and your time for free. And I'm like, nah.
We just talked about that.
Hello. But then when
Behind
you bring
the scenes, right?
Right.
Behind the scenes, they were like, pay your videographers.
Exactly.
Right? Pay them on time, give them a deposit. have some sandwiches. We have sandwiches here, just let you know.
Get some fresh fruit, some water,
some wine, you know.
Treat people good.
Treat people well, and they keep coming back.
Exactly, and they don't want that, Sasha. And then when you say that, working in predominantly white spaces, as a black woman, if you say that, it's like, oh, now she's angry. And I'm like, nah, this is my regular tone. I'm chilling. I just want to know if you're going to pay me.
Now, the interesting part of that is I feel like, and I've just learned through my journey of like coming out, going from growing up in Baltimore and then going to a really, really, really white institution to, I went from big ass Jabot jeans. I mean, talk about culture shock. It's going from Baltimore public schools to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And when I showed up, I mean, I was born in '83, so I grew up in the '90s and 2000s. I had a size 7X white tee. I mean, my white tee
No, you were rocking the tall tees, the Soulja Boy,
I showed up on campus and people were like, what the heck is wrong with you? Who is this? I had cornrows down to here.
They crossed the street, didn't they, when you were walking?
Yeah, 6X white tee and some Jabot jeans that you could fit a whole family in. And the big butter Timbs, right? And I was like, I'm here. And they were like, what?
But like, I am immediately frightened.
What happened? So I just, even the country people were making fun of me because I had a super Baltimore accent.
Oh, y'all Baltimore accents are crazy. Y'all do. I lived in Baltimore for 2 years, okay? It was like really scary and tragic a lot of the time. I was so poor. But no, like, I was so broke. Literally though, Baltimore was an experience of its own. Y'all talk so funny.
I didn't know Baltimore was so different until I left.
Oh.
I was like, wait, everybody like
this? You grew up in it. So it's like different when you leave it and then you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not how things normally are. Got it.
Yeah. And the funniest thing is when country people make fun of you, like, you talk funny.
You're like,
I'm like, wait, no, you talk funny.
That's a whole new level.
So they like teased it out of me where I would sit in my like mirror and say, dog, dog.
Do, not do. Do you have?
Because I was like, what y'all trying to do? All that. So it was just funny, but I say that to say like it's so easy for us to in those situations not stand in who our truth is and who we are. And not saying you're not supposed to grow, but what I started doing, I started wearing Sperry's. I started getting polo shirts. Yeah, all
the double polos. Remember that was a thing when we were in high school. Yeah,
I was just like
college,
trying to fit. Everybody wants to fit in, right? And now I'm wearing gold tee.
Now you're wearing gold tee, teaching a SoulCycle class in girls. This guy.
And I love black people's shirts.
Right.
In Bethesda.
I got so many messages about that when I put it on Insta. They were like, I love this guy, and I was like, same. I love him too. Who else is gonna show up in an I love black people's shirt with like girls?
Yeah, but the old white ladies loved it.
They did.
They were here for it.
They loved it.
They loved it. We played Manny Fresh. They were like, I didn't know the music, but the beats was thumping. I was like, hey.
They were like sitting in the back like, I like this. They didn't know none of the words, but you just see it in their face. They're like.
But kind of like what you talked about, I also want to show I didn't just show up with feeling confident enough to be like in my sexuality and where I grew up and my blackness, or I didn't just always feel like, oh, I can just do this.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort. Yeah.
A lot of liquor.
Yeah. I mean, that too. So much Hennessy.
So much Hennessy.
You know, I'm not a Hennessy person. I feel like I remember
if you want to get on this sponsorship, you just let us know.
Yeah, Hennessy, hit him up.
Hennessy.
I remember the last time though I drank Hennessy. It was like really tragic. I don't drink Hennessy no more.
Yeah, I can't.
It's a problem. Incredible Hulk.
This is so.
I'm like crazy. That's that Gemini crazy that comes out of
You're that old. I love you. Because a lot of people you say Incredible Hulks, they won't know what you're talking about.
They're I think like, you know, we just look so young that people won't believe we're in our like our 30s.
Hypnotic?
I remember that shit was so nasty.
It was so bad.
In all the songs, everybody's drinking Hypnotic because it looks like the cool thing to do. And you're like, this shit is nasty, but I'm gonna drink it anyway. It's the most amazing thing ever. Oh my goodness, what else was it? 50-50, Mad Dog, all this other
oh my god.
Oh, we had like a separate conversation about this. Now we're like going down the rabbit hole.
All right. I want to talk about growing up with, and correct me if I use the wrong terminology, immigrant parents.
Yeah.
Because I think there's such a interesting space that you grew up in that we don't get, because I just remember growing up and like I felt like there was tension between Africans and African Americans.
You know, I had this conversation last week
really?
with like there was one guy, he was an African American, he's like Black American, and then the rest of us are like Ghanaians, Nigerians, and we're talking about this, and he was like, I feel that y'all thought y'all were better than us. And I'm like, no, I never felt that. Well, there is some tension there.
I don't. It's funny you said that, but I don't know what the tension is.
Yeah.
But there's definitely some difference, and as I've gotten older, I'm starting to try to think about like, well, in America, just because you're Black, they think all y'all saying right.
Thank you.
Versus like,
and that's why I never understood like the disconnect and like the friction, because I'm like, no person is coming up to me, no white person is coming up to me like, oh, are you Nigerian? All right, I won't be racist towards you, my bad. You're not one of those. You're not a Black American, you're a Nigerian American. It's like, no, nobody knows that. Like, if anything, a lot of people, because my maiden name was so distinct, if you saw my name on a piece of paper, you would know that I wasn't like Black. You would know that I was Black, but you would know that it was something else. Like, there's something else there. But then when I would talk on the phone to people, they would think I was a white girl. So I would like talk to people because of, you know, I a lot of the time growing up, I was told that I sounded like a white girl.
Which isn't a real thing.
It's not a real thing at all. And I would hate when people say that, because I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, oh, you don't talk like other Black people. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what does it mean? What are you trying to say?
It never goes past what it means.
Exactly.
It just is.
Right, or they like get really sensitive and they're like, oh, why are you acting offended? And I'm like, no, don't flip this on me.
Yeah.
You were the one who said it. I asked you to explain yourself. But yeah, so when I would talk to people on the phone, I would be like, oh, I'm coming like to get something at work. I would be like, hey, it's Sasha, I'm coming, da da da. And if they never met me before, I would get to their desk and they'd be like, Sasha? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, okay, here. Because I knew that they were.
Gotcha. Thought I was a white girl. I'm Black Sasha.
I was
from Nigeria.
Right. Like, actually, Nigerian. But yeah, like growing up, I would say like, and I don't know if my parents purposefully did this. Like, I don't know if it was something they talked about and decided, but like I grew up with such a like just sense of being like proud, like proudly Black and also proudly Nigerian.
And that was a question I wanted to get to, is like, what is it like? So just chime in, I guess. Your parents were born in Nigeria.
They were born in Nigeria. They came here in the
Do you think they tried to make sure you held on more to your Nigerian heritage?
Oh, absolutely.
Or did they say like, hey, you're American?
Literally, like, no. When I would do certain things, like I would want to go to the movies with my friends, or I would want to go to sleepovers. We were never allowed to do sleepovers. I'd be like, I want to sleep over with my friends. I don't understand why I just can't be a normal kid. And they're like, you're acting like an American. You're not an American. You're Nigerian. You just live here in America, but you're Nigerian. So it was like it was communicated very clearly that I was like Nigerian first. So it would be Nigeria everything growing up in my household, but then you step outside and you're not in Nigeria, you're in America. And so it almost felt a lot of the time I had my feet in different worlds. Like at home, it would be Nigeria everything, and then I would be outside to be at school or with my friends, and it was like very American. So sometimes it can be like a little disconcerting, because you're trying to, just like you said, you're trying to fit in with all these other people, but you can't do what they do. My friends would come over and they'd be like, do you have snacks? And I'm like, yeah, we got rice. We got rice and stew. And they'd be like, are you eating? Yeah, I'd be like, we got goat meat. And they're like, you're eating goats? And I'm like, y'all don't eat goat? I'm like, this is shit that's normal to me. But then they're like, that's disgusting. And I'm like, y'all eat cows. Like, we didn't grow up. I didn't grow up eating a lot of beef. So I'm like, y'all eat cows? That shit is nasty. Like, but it's just because you don't know what you don't know. But like, people are very quick to tell you like, that's weird or that's gross. So, but I never felt anything about my culture was weird. That was just what I knew.
When did you realize that how you grew up was different than how other people were growing up?
Constantly, like the sleepover thing. I would remember like wanting to sleep over at people's house. My mom like, oh, everybody can sleep over here. And I'm one of 7. I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers. I'm number 2 in that lineup. So our house was
on that line.
Yeah, I was literally a fucking lineup. All right, starting 5. We've got, like literally a lineup. So we've got like, we were the fun house. So everybody would want to come and sleep over because there was always like people to play with and stuff like that. But you don't go to sleepovers. My grandparents were in Nigeria, so I really didn't have like any relationship with them. I would talk with them on the phone, but I was so envious of like all of my friends who grew up with their grandparents and had a lot of their cousins, because literally it was my mom and my dad and then one of my mom's sisters and one of my dad's brothers, they were the only immediate family they had here. So all of my aunts and uncles were my parents' friends, so I would call them aunts and uncles. I didn't even realize they weren't my blood relatives until like I was maybe like 10 or 11, and I'm like, wait, that's not your brother, that's just your friend. But in Nigerian culture, you don't call adults by their first name. Everybody is aunt or uncle, whatever. Even at my big age now,
That's true.
That's
how you get smacked.
Oh, absolutely. When my coworkers are like, just call me by my first name, I'm like, nah, you're just Miss Stacy. Like, I'm not. She's like, just call me Stacy. Nah, okay, Miss Stacy. Like, I can't.
That was one of the biggest culture shocks for me. Like, I grew up in a black neighborhood, but always went to the good school. Everybody's address. Yeah. I remember sitting at the table, like memorizing my grandfather's address. So that when they would try to crack down, like I live at 5106. Well,
use their address, not your address.
Yeah, use their address, right? But I remember going to sleepovers and stuff, and like white kids or other kids talking to their parents a certain way, or calling them by their first name, and I was like,
I remember the day I was at my friend Stephanie. She told her mom to shut up, and I sat on the couch like waiting for her to slap me, and I didn't even say anything. I was waiting for the slap to come, and her mom was like, "Don't you talk to me like that?" I'm like, she ain't slap you? Like you can tell your mom to shut up and you don't die? Like that shit is wild. I would have never, not even in my wildest dreams would I think about telling my mom to shut up, because then she would slap me out of my dream and be like, I know what you were dreaming about. Don't even think about it. You know, so I did just like small things like that, like how you talk to your parents, like even going to college and coming back home. I was 20 years old asking my parents for permission to do things. And my American friends would be like, why are you asking for permission to go out? You're over the age of 18, just go. And I'm like, oh, that's how it works in your household, because it don't work like that in my household. Like it don't work like that.
Just culturally, so many
different cultural differences.
So a segue with that, I know you're in an interracial relationship.
Yeah.
I've been in many of those.
Yeah.
Also,
Snowbay's way.
What Snowbay? As she goes.
That's what I call my husband. I just call him Snowbay.
She's like, Snowbay's over there. Snowbay's over there. What has that been like, or what? She said, hopefully it's been amazing.
No, it really has been great. It's mostly been great. I think the most challenging part was people on my Nigerian side telling me, and I know it was coming from like a place of love and caring about me, so I didn't feel like, they don't want me to be happy, but they were like, you should really think about your children, because they're not going to know what they are or who they are. They're going to walk through this world confused because they're both and they're none at the same time. So, and then my mom, she was like really like, I was the first one in my family to get married.
Oh, yeah. So you had even more pressure.
Even more pressure. Then we had to have a Nigerian ceremony. Like, I'm Catholic, he's not. So then I wanted to get, my mom was like, you have to get married in the Catholic Church, but he was not converting. It was so much.
Yeah.
So it was like religious differences, racial differences, nationality differences, like so many like different things. But like,
on top of a wedding, stressful anyway. Like just getting married, even if you go to the courthouse, it's stressful.
I literally tell everyone, I'm like, how strongly do you feel about watching your family members watching you get married? Because if you don't feel strongly about it, go and elope, spend your money on a honeymoon.
Oh, really?
Like, that's what I will tell anyone. If you are watching this, elope and spend your money on a honeymoon. Because weddings are just so stressful. But like, I think our relationship has been really easy between the two of us. But
I sense that y'all just seem like really like,
yeah, we're just
chilling. Two homies.
Thank you. And I think it also was like longevity. Like we've been together now for, it'll be 10 years in a couple of months. Yeah, it'll be 10 years in November, and then we've been married for going on 5 years? Yeah, this year it'll be 5 years. Oh. So, we're just like, he's literally my best friend. Like, we're each other's best friends. We're just like really comfortable with each other. And so I think like we didn't really have a lot of difficult conversations until Trayvon Martin. And then it was like, because he saw it a little bit differently than I saw it. Yeah. Because I was like, this is another show of white supremacy and the devaluation of black lives. And he was like, but George Zimmerman is not white, so why is this being put on the white community? And I was like, well, it's a difference. Like, he is aligned with whiteness, that he would think that...
He's not white?
He's half.
I just learned something today.
Yeah, he is a biracial, Latinx appearing man. So, he's not white though, but I don't know how he identifies as himself. But and I was like, it's not so much a matter of, I was trying to tell somebody this, I was like, it's not a matter of him being white or not white, it's more so a matter of the devaluation of Black lives once again. And we had so many like difficult conversations about that, and he didn't understand it. Like, he grew up like really poor, so he didn't understand the concept of white privilege. He's like, I had to fight for everything in life. Nobody handed me anything. And I was like,
that's also true.
It's absolutely true.
It doesn't take away from your fight, the things you had to do,
right?
But also
your skin, your name, or your privileges. And so I tried to explain that to him, and then I don't think it finally clicked until I was like, one day, God willing, we are going to have kids. Well, I'm teen one and done, so a single child.
Really?
Yeah, I'm literally growing up in a household with 6 other siblings has really underscored the fact for me, I don't want a group of kids. I just want one, and then I'm done. And that's it. Like, no, I don't want hella kids. Like, none of that. But, I had to explain to him, like, we're going to have a child someday. And because of the way genetics work, they can come out looking like you, or they can come out looking like me. And I'm black. Like, blackity black, ultra black, ain't no mixture of black, Nigerian, African, period. Ain't no, we're just black. So like, they can come out looking like me, and you're not gonna be able to, he's not gonna be able to move through the world like you. And even if it's a girl, she's not gonna be able to move through the world like you. They're not gonna have the same privileges as you. So if that was your child, if Trayvon Martin was your child, what would you want people to say? You wouldn't want them to be having a conversation of George Zimmerman's race or whatever. You would want them to be having a conversation about, this is another attack on another innocent black body, another innocent black boy, another innocent black girl. And I think that finally clicked for him. But I think that's the case for a lot of people. I won't just say like white people, but I'll just say like people in general. Sometimes things don't touch us, or we don't feel impacted by things unless it personally happens to us, or like someone we know, or someone we care about, or we can see ourselves in other people.
I think empathy is it should be a course throughout school.
Absolutely.
The entire, every year.
Yeah.
Because the lack of empathy in the world is just,
it's insane.
It's crazy. It's like, people don't learn that maybe if I put myself in someone else's shoes, how would I look at something? And as I've gotten close to 40, I've been really thinking about like how, and this is part of why we're doing all this type of stuff, is how do people learn empathy?
I think empathy is like one of the things that we are lacking most, and I think it makes it hard to relate to other people. And like, in our brain, there is like that small part of our brain that feels more empathetic or connected to people we look like. We're more able to relate to them. But on a human level of connection and just feeling for others, we all bleed the same, we all cry the same, we all love the same,
but
we all
I don't think everyone
same.
gets it. I honestly think, as I've gotten older, and then I think we live in a world now that's way more separated than ever, where we really focus on the things that are different. I totally agree, like we do bleed the same in general, and that's the whole concept of this thing, is showing that like people that look differently come from different spaces.
We're not that different.
Not that different.
But I think it's also because it's crazy, because with social media, we should be more connected because the world is so much smaller, but now people use this to like divide people. So like the whole QAnon stuff that was going on last year, that like crazy shit, it was like, how can we they were like, cancel culture creates division and discord, but then I'm like, you're spreading all of these conspiracy theories that do nothing but create division and discord. So what are we talking about here? Like, I think people, it's just very interesting to me how people are lacking a certain level of self-awareness.
So my question, I'll go back to it. This is like if you can answer this, you will be Oprah Winfrey. How do we make people more empathetic?
Oh,
you had a great way you did with your husband. Yeah. So how do we make the world more empathetic?
I think the way we channeling Oprah. No, but like in all seriousness, I think like we make more people empathetic by recognizing we're legitimately all the same. All of these small things that we think divide us, they're not rooted in reality. Like, they're rooted in reality in which we look. I see you are different. You look different from me, but that doesn't means your life is less valuable, that you're less intelligent, that you have less worth. And that's what we do as a society. We use all of these different things to put people on different pedestals. Like, for example, Eurocentric standards of beauty. Based on those, I'm probably very far from that. I've got kinky ass hair, I've got dark ass skin, I've got a big nose, I've got big lips. And thank you. Well, see, that's the benefit of growing up in my household. You couldn't tell me nothing. You couldn't tell me I wasn't pretty. Like, growing up in that environment where blackness was so valued, like, I was only allowed to watch, we weren't allowed to watch a lot of TV, and the TV that we were allowed to watch, they had to be like educational or depictions of black people in a positive light. I only ever had black dolls. I only ever was taught.
Wow.
Yeah, my parents, we didn't
You
have.
grew up in like the Black Truman Show.
Yeah. And that's why I say, I don't know if my parents like did it purposefully.
Yes, that's intentional.
Yeah, there are 5 girls in my family.
Wow.
So imagine, like, you're having to form the identities of 5 black girls in a society that tells us that we are less than before we are 8 fucking years old. That's when we like peak at our level of self-confidence. So I credit my parents so much, and I thank them a lot about, I mean, I thank them in my brain. I think I probably said thank you verbally like 4 or 5 times, but I like appreciate it so much that they really instilled in us a sense of pride and never letting anyone make us feel like we are less than because of what we look like. So this skin, I've never wanted to lighten it. I've never wanted to alter it. I literally love the skin I'm in. Like, I literally love my freaking features so much. And people are like, why are you wearing extensions? Because they're great and easy. Why are you wearing braids? Because they're fucking awesome. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just because you like wear your hair a different way doesn't mean you don't appreciate it in its natural state. Like, it's just a hairstyle. Like, no one comes at white women when they curl their hair or alter it. So I don't understand why people come at black women, but another conversation for another day. But all of this to say that I think we really start to teach people empathy when we get away from all of these standards, but believing these false societal standards of beauty, of worth, of intelligence. Like, we went back to people saying, you don't sound like you're black. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah,
you talk white. What does that mean? When we start to strip away all of these labels and markers and just like recognize that we're all just like human beings. At the end of the day, we are all human beings, and we're all here for generally kind of the same, I mean, everybody has a different purpose, but I do believe we were all put here for a reason. So when we walk around and recognize that G was put here for a different reason, we can recognize that G's life is just as valuable as my own because he is here for a reason.
I love that. I feel like, can we do this?
Oh, we gotta channel our inner share. My nails aren't long enough.
Have that right there. So I think it's a great segue, especially like with pride and blackness and stuff. And you know, through training, we had some side conversations about
when you call me fake.
I wasn't gonna go back. I called you fake. I was gonna go somewhere else. All right, everyone. I called Sasha fake before I knew her, and then we had to have a conversation.
We had a good conversation about it.
On Instagram, I called her fake. I was like, you fake. And then just
like, you gotta call me and explain that to me.
You can't just call. She was ready to fight me.
You can't just put that in a text message. What?
But you had some surprising situations in previous places in fitness that blew my mind even. Yeah. And I constantly have this thing where like I'm like, even I have trained other like black women in fitness, and I constantly always say, I will never know your struggle. I don't know what it's like. I can just try to support you through it, and I can try to give you some armor to rock it out, but every time you walk in the room, I don't know what it's like, right? But I guess just go into, I know it was one instance with your earrings, like someone said something to it. But like, why are you
wearing hoop earrings?
Yeah, like what is that? You
can't wear hoops anymore. A client complained about hoop earrings.
What has that journey been like, and what would you like to see change, I guess, through it?
You know, it's the reason why I got into fitness was because I didn't see myself represented. So growing up, my dad is always like, when you don't see the example, you become the example. You become.
Okay, Dad.
Yeah. Like,
side note, the more I hear about your dad, the more I have to meet this person.
He's like, honestly,
because he had you on like pedestals, like.
This is why, like, you can't tell me shit about myself. Like, I grew up in an environment full of love, happiness, support. And when people don't know that, when people operate from a place of struggle, and not even just struggle, your light will irritate the hell out of some people. You will be like sandpaper to people when you.
Right. We're on this open shit. Wait, you gotta say it again. Your light will irritate the hell out of somebody.
It will irritate when you just walk in and you are comfortable with who you are. It will really irritate people who are not comfortable with themselves, who don't love themselves. So I think being, and that's the environment I was raised in, to like really just love myself and to love my people and to just be proud of who I am. So that's how I lead. I lead with that light. I lead with that love. And I'm not like saying like I'm the most fucking amazing person ever, because I do have my moments where I'm like, if you talk to me like that one more time, we're gonna see different sides. But like I generally speaking, that's how I like, you know, show up. So when and my dad's like great though. He's one of my favorite people on the planet, honestly. But when I didn't see people that looked like me when I started this fitness journey like 6 years ago, I didn't see people that looked like me. And in DC of all places, this is Chocolate City. And I didn't see people that looked like me. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this thing. And people want you, they say, like we talked about earlier, they say they want you to show up as you are. They want you to be yourself. And in this industry where you really are giving so much time, so much energy, you walk into a space and energy is so real, energy is so transferable. And I've had so many different experiences, and some of them have been like really positive, but others of them have been mostly negative. And those negative experiences, they have led me to where I am now. So I don't want to say I'm happy they happened, because I'm not happy that they happened. They were really hurtful and frustrating and upsetting. But at the same time, that's kind of, they got me to where I am now. Because at the beginning of the pandemic, that's when I was telling you, it really clicked for me. Like, I am not going to hide myself anymore. I'm not going to, like when you told me that you were like, I feel like you're not showing up as you. I'm like, no, I can't show up as me, because every single time I've been told, show up as yourself, show up as Sasha. I come through as Sasha, and it's not good enough for people. They want the Sasha that will teach the amazing class, that sells out and puts butts on bikes, but they don't want the Sasha that asks for opportunities for training and development and to become a lead instructor. They don't want that Sasha. They want the Sasha that's going to stay small and sell out classes, but that's it. And I was like, I knew that I was so much bigger than that. And I like existed in this space where I saw other people who, I'm not going to say they weren't as talented as me, because everybody brings something different to the table. So I don't want to compare like that. But when I saw people that didn't work nearly as hard as I did be consistently rewarded, that started to like mess with me, because it's like, am I the problem? Like, why am I staying in this space? And for the clients, I love the clients. I love the people that I showed up for. So if I could just like directly cut off management, and that's what I tried to do. I was like, split my mind. I was like, I'm going to only come in here I'm gonna show up for the clients, and I'm gonna not deal with management. I'm gonna put them on the side. But again, you have to go in, and that requires you to like split yourself. And when you split yourself like that, it cuts off an aspect of you, a part of you. And I'm like, I deserve to be in spaces where I'm valued. And when I finally, the pandemic, I saw how that space treated other people. And I'm like, we are at the beginning of this pandemic where we don't know what's going on, and you want clients to come into this space, but on top of that, you want coaches to teach in this space, and we're not gonna change anything. You don't value me at that point. Like, you don't value the clients, and that's fine, but you don't value me. And if anything, I value me. And so I just left that space. And when I left that space, I was like, you know what? I will never, ever again be in a fitness space where I am not valued, where I'm not given opportunities to succeed, and where I cannot be myself. And that's really what's guided me throughout like this entire pandemic. And it's really motivated me to do the things that I want to do. Like, I'd always wanted to like pursue meditation, and I was always like a little hesitant, and I was like burnt out as fuck But I was finally like, okay, well, I'm not working in this space anymore. Let me do the things that ignite me. And I think this industry, there's so many things that could change. And one thing else is like tangible representation, not just putting on us on a poster for Black History Month or for Pride Month or for June. You know, June is also Black Music Month. So not just like making, here's this bomb ass playlist by our single Black instructor, which is loaded with hip hop from like 20, I don't know, friggin' 15. You know, like these like, I don't want to say they're like shallow, because there is value in seeing us represented, but there's also value in seeing us being represented in spaces where decisions are being made. Day to day. Yeah. Exactly. So don't just put us on a bike and be like, all right, we've got our Black. Are we in the boardrooms? Are we in the places where important decisions are being made? And I think that's like really important. That's how we start to change the industry in impactful and meaningful ways, but especially for Black women. This industry is not kind to Black women, and it's not on us to change that. Like it's difficult enough some days to just like show up as ourselves and see people fucking cancel out of classes because we got subbed in, you know, girl, you know, everybody has their favorite instructor and that's fine, but like it's like white girl instructor, or white dude instructor, and then the Black girl subs and everyone's like dropping out. It's like, give me a chance. Like the fuck? Like what? You know?
Love it. What mask have you worn and why did you take it off?
The mask of showing up as sometimes half of myself and then staying in spaces that really didn't serve me. And I talk about that all the time to people. I'm like, if it doesn't serve you, leave it alone. But then I'm like going into these spaces where I'm like, I'm here for the clients and I love them so much. And finally I was like, you know what? I can love the clients, but I gotta love me more and I gotta value me more. And so I took that off. And I was like, I'm sorry, I left the space. And you know, I get these messages like, why did you leave? I'm like, do you want the real or do you want the PC answer? But I was like, I also like didn't feel like I needed to explain it, because I'm like, I'm doing something for me. So I know that you're hurt as a client, but Sasha is going to thrive leaving this space.
What did you learn by taking that mask off? Like in the bigger picture?
Just finally doing something for me. I think a lot of the time, this pandemic had us like, before the pandemic, we lived our lives in this way. We're like, go, 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 constant, gotta be doing things all the time, moving, busy, da da da. And I was like burnt the fuck out. Like I didn't even realize I was burnt out until this panorama was like, sit your ass down. And I was like, okay, they're like, you can't go anywhere. This is closed, that is closed, that is closed. And I think I slept. I have not slept so good as I have in my entire life as I have in the past year. And I think it's because I was like forced to prioritize things and like do the things that I really wanted to do. So when you're like able to do those things, it changes how you show up. And I show up now so much more like refreshed and engaged and happy, and even but like sometimes again there's like that point A to point Z, right? That point J where we first met, where like we're in training, I'm still like, I don't know if I can be myself just yet. You know, like that's that point where I'm like starting to get there. And so I decided to like take that mask off, that I'm gonna show up fully as myself authentically. But then like there is also the part of me that's like very intuitive and very woo, and it's like big on energy, and not everyone is deserving of your energy. So when I walk into a space, I like just kind of observe others and see who I want to give my time to, who I want to give my energy to, who I want to be around. So, and then I can be like, okay, cool. Now I'm here.
Now I'm here. What, if any, mask do you feel like you're wearing now that you're willing to like reveal? Like, do you have something that you're working on? Because kind of how we talked about earlier, like we always show like, and now I got it all together, and now I'm here. Or like, what are we working through now? Like, what mask are you trying to actively take off now?
What mask I'm trying to actively take off now is making the jump fully to leaving my very stable kind of full-time job. During the pandemic, I feel like 2020, I told myself, I was like, this is the year that I'm gonna pursue fitness full-time, period. I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna make it happen. And then the Pangea was like, LOL, that's cute. And then you see like all these people losing their jobs, losing their opportunities. And for me, I've always been in this something that comes from just like being a child of immigrants. They're like, we didn't come to America for you to pursue your dreams. You better pursue that solid, exactly, our dreams. Doctor, lawyer, engineer, that's it. Anything else, you're a failure, but that's okay. You have a very stable job. So I'm like, okay, I got this stable job. I'm paying my bills. I'm paying I'm not really like as affected. And so that kind of safety blanket that I have that was ingrained in me from like childhood of not leaving something until you have something permanent lined up, that's really caused me a lot of the time to stay in certain spaces for far too long, because I was like, I have this fear of the unknown. And I think that's just like my Gemini brain. Like I crave
I would say that's bigger than Gemini. I mean, fear of the unknown and safety is something that translates to all of us. We all have felt it. We all are.
And I talk about scarcity mindset and mentality so much, and that is something based in scarcity. And so as I talk about a lot of the things that I'm actively working through myself, because I need to hear it. And so when I talk about scarcity, it comes from that place of, I don't like change. And that's something that's deeply ingrained in me. I don't like change. I'm like, I don't know. So that's something that I'm working through right now, being ready to just take the leap. And I feel like I'm like, you know, you're in your pool, right? And you don't really know how to swim, but you kind of know how to swim, and you're like, I'm gonna do this doggy paddle. Do I release one hand off the wall though? I'm gonna release it. And so I'm working on releasing that other hand. We got one hand over here, and then we're just walking around the pool with our hand on the side. And I wanna release that hand on the side.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming to Unmasked.
Thank you for having me.
Showing your full, true self. And hopefully some of the stories and stuff we talked about will impact and help connect with other people. And
I hope so.
Well, it better.
I mean, it better, exactly. We talked about a lot of great things.
Cool. And we'll chat soon.
Yay, chat soon. You gotta give me a hug.
Dramatic couch hug.